Welcome. This is Darren Coble. I'm the founder and principal of Versa Business Partners. We're an HR outsourcing firm that does consulting, coaching for leadership and executives, and just about anything you need from an HR perspective aside from employing your folks. And we don't do that, but want to introduce Stephen Sutton today. He's here and volunteered to come and speak to us about the different security risks and IT considerations we should be taking into account as we handle this COVID-19 pandemic with tons of folks working from home and just a new, I don't know if it's a normal yet, but it feels like it after several weeks of this. And so we'll have Steve speak here in a little bit. Just want to remind folks, this is a webinar series that's put on by a partnership between the Bryan College Station Chamber of Commerce, the SBDC, Employer Flexible, and Versa Business Partners. We as a group saw an opportunity to put and make some easy connections of our experts in the area and throughout the chamber to chamber members and just any small business owner out there that needs help and may have some questions and just wants to learn a little bit more to navigate this COVID-19 situation. So Stephen Sutton has volunteered for us. He is the CEO of TechBundle, and TechBundle is an IT department for hire. Basically what they do is they offer, Stephen can serve as the chief information officer for your organization, and you're able to outsource your entire IT function, outsource that department to TechBundle. And so it's a pretty cool offering that he's able to provide a full suite of support and IT and just general technology leadership for your organization at a fraction of what it would cost to have your own organization or own team. And so, Stephen, thank you for joining us today. And I will hand it over to you. And just thanks again for joining, and we look forward to hearing about what you've got for us today.
All right. Thank you, Darren. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here. And let me share with everyone. First, I just want to say this isn't going to be all doom and gloom. I'm going to start out, of course, with the major risks that we have presenting us right now. But I do want to set the expectation that this isn't just going to be another cybersecurity presentation. By now everyone's heard of all the awful things going on out there long before COVID-19 came around. And there are a lot of other special security issues that we have, specifically because they're trying to attack us in using this information. So that's constantly changing, but basically what you need to know is that the government's not going to reach out to you. You will reach out to them and ask them questions. So if they reach out to you, or if a bank you don't know that reaches out to you, then just assume it's a scam. And even if it's the bank you normally work with, if it's not the person you normally work with and don't recognize their voice, say, let me call you right back. Go to their website, look up their phone number, and call them back on that number. And that's the gist of protecting yourself from the immediate schemes that we're seeing out there. But very specifically, there's some much better resources on looking at what's changing day to day. And I suggest to look at KnowBe4's blog, especially their trends recap post that they recently did. That goes over in detail exactly what some of these scams look like and how to protect yourself from them. And that is probably one of the, that KnowBe4 site, I'm going to mention it a couple times as we talk throughout here, because it's just a great resource. It's a great tool. We use it for a lot of our customers to be able to protect, train people to protect themselves. And that's the only way you truly can protect yourself is through training of your people. But besides cybersecurity, like I said, that's all I really want to talk about on that for now. But there are other issues that now that we're working from home have opened up. And they are that a lot of us rushed out there to start working from home. And although we may have had everything in place to be able to let 1 or 2 people work from home, the whole staff wasn't used to it. The whole company wasn't used to working from home. The whole system wasn't built to have everyone working from home. So by now, most people have figured out how to get that done, but they probably rushed into that, that decision to do it. So the things that we need to go back to do now is to look at the tools that you chose to do this, make sure they're actually working with the way you do business. If you were doing a VPN solution, which is a direct connection into your network, are you seeing a lot of problems with speed? Are you not able to run some of your programs, or all of your programs crashing? Then maybe you need to look at something more like LogMeIn, who is providing a ability to remote control your computer from home, which doesn't require as much data to transfer across your system. So if you're having some major issues with the speed of working from home, or that you're constantly crashing, your apps aren't working the way you're used to, then it's probably a good sign that you need to look at another solution and have someone help you and talk to you about exactly what's going to work in your case. And then there's the other issues that have popped up because of this. Is a lot of work from home employees are working off their own computers now, or they have they took a computer home to work from home. And if they're working on those their own computer, there's going to be the question's going to come up eventually: whose responsibility is it when the computer breaks? So if it's your employee's home computer, do you want to be responsible for fixing their computer, having someone work on their computer, having your own IT do it? This is something you probably need to talk with your lawyer about and to think about on what you're getting yourself involved in. And probably something that most people haven't really considered, that when you opened up these doors to allow remote work, now you have opened up this door. You have to worry about if your employees' home computers are secure. You have to worry about, do they have a good enough internet connection? Now they require that internet connection. So now should you be looking at reimbursing them for part of that? But there's all these open questions that are going to be open, and it's better to get ahead of them and communicate with your employees on what you expect and whose responsibility is what there. And especially on your data, you need to have some good, strong policies about that the data that is part of your company belongs to your company. So every company has proprietary information, whether it's customer list, vendor list, past quotes, current pricing from your vendors, any information like that. If it's not on your equipment, if it's not on your system, the stories of what we've seen in the past has happened. We had a customer a long time ago that had an employee that did everything through their own email. And because of that, all the old quotes were going through his email address. Now the email address was the company name, a combination of the company name and their name @gmail.com. And so our customer, the company in question, thought that they owned that, but in reality, the employee set it up. That employee left and now had all the information of all the quotes going on, went to work for a competitor and had all that information. And because as far as Gmail was concerned, that employee owned the email, not the employer. That's just a story of something that happened before this. But what we have seen is that the data and where the data resides, if it's on somebody else's equipment, unless you have an agreement with someone, it's something to definitely talk to your lawyer about, and also look at very closely to make sure you have control over that and can contain it in some fashion. And this rush to work to home, this is probably the biggest issue that we foresee as being the big gotcha, is where's the data, who has responsibility for it now? It's completely out of the employer's hands. So now what? And you can solve a lot of that by creating some great policies, and I'll talk about where to get information on how to do that. One of the best places that I found is that there's a great site out there, 650.com, that has a special answer a few questions, and it creates COVID-19 policies for you. But you should have already had some other policies as well. Computer use policies, what you expect your employees to use, how you expect them to use the computers, both at work and if they take them home. Like, you don't want your employees using it for their kids to play games on. That opens up security holes. You don't want their kids getting on there and posting on social media and not realizing that their parent wasn't logged out of the company's social media account and just posted something on there. So you need to have a social media policy, you need to have a computer use policy, and you need to have a data security policy, naming what is important information, people's social security numbers and things like that. And when an employee is using that type of information, how they can and can't use it. This was a big problem with our clients that have multiple locations. They actually were emailing resumes amongst from one location to another and passing a social security number, which is on most job applications or information about employment, going back and forth. If it's not encrypted in the state of Texas, can be fined up to $10,000 per incident. So again, these policies are extremely important. Most of them were important before this happened, but they were things that people hadn't thought about, and now more than ever, and now that we have time, now's the time to go back and make sure you have those, that they actually represent what you need. And so beyond the COVID-19 policies, if you're interested in the computer use policy, data security policy, and social media policy, I'm not a lawyer. I can't tell you I can give you your own policy, but I do have samples that you can take back to your lawyer and generate for your company. And if you want those, Darren will post my email address, and you guys can send me an email, and I'll send you some samples of what we've seen in the past, just to get you started in the right direction. So I'm going to speak real quick on a lot of the tools you use out there aren't out of the box safe. This was what happened with Zoom. Everyone's by now probably heard how Zoom was insecure and it has all these issues. Most of those issues weren't a problem with Zoom. It was a problem that people didn't know how to correctly set it up. This is an inherent problem with almost every piece of software we've seen out there, whether it be Office 365, setting up email, or using Zoom or any other tool, is that out of the box, they're not secure. And they sold you with all the features, saying that they had all these features to keep you secure, but you didn't know that you had to go set them all up. And so that's what happened with Zoom, and how Zoom fixed most of its problems in the last week or so, since all the problems came to light, is they just turned on all the password features, all the features to automatically not allow people to share their screen. All of that has been automatically turned on. So if you've updated your Zoom in the last week, you now have a more secure environment to work in, as long as you're not blasting your Zoom information out there and resetting your defaults to make it insecure. That's the thing that you need to make sure you look at. Make sure that you're secure. Go through the settings. Make sure that the things that are on there, or get someone to help you with that is familiar with setting up security. That'd be very helpful. Now that covers most of the risks that we have seen out there. But one of the biggest things that I see, and as an IT professional for since, well, I'm not going to age myself, it's a couple of decades at least, but is that now is a time when, which we've never seen before, as far as the compression of the acceptance of using new technology. The number one failure of almost any new software or new IT rollout project is getting adoption from the employees. We've seen companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a new CRM system or a new ERP system, or even, you know, bring it down. Let's say you spent just $5,000 on a simple, you know, high-end version of QuickBooks or Peachtree, and you used to be using the other product. People end up trying that for a year, and then they go back to the other product or the way they were doing things before. And that's because employees don't get bought into using the system. And so now that's all different. I mean, the employees are more open, your customers are more open. There's just this mindset of let's find a way to still make sure we can get work done. So let's take advantage of that. And I'm not saying that right now is the time to run out and go buy an ERP and implement it right now, but you can look at your current software and look at it closely and go back through the training videos. Nearly 50% of all software out there, 50% of the features in any software out there are never used. So now's the time to have your employees look at what they're doing in their job and look at those special softwares in your company, whether it be QuickBooks or some special software that you use to track jobs or whatever. And there are features out there that you haven't taken advantage of, that you haven't been able to use yet, or you just didn't have time to train the employees on. Well, now you have the time. You have some time on your hands, at least most of us do. And you can start looking at ways that you can make your processes work even better. And this working from home is forcing us to do that. It's forcing us to look at the way we do business. It's forcing us to look at our technology and implementing those technologies. So we can take that information or the fact, and we can help us get adoption from the employees, get them to use the software to a higher degree, which is going to create more efficiencies in your company, which is what you want right now. You want to create more efficiency in your company because you want to do more with less. And you're going to get more buy-in from your employees. A good example with your customers is something that we've been trying to do for years, is to get all of our clients to go to ACH direct deposits for all of our invoicing. Well, right now is the best time to do that because people don't want to deal with checks. Dealing with checks and mailing out checks, even our oldest customers are having a hard time even trying to do that. So reaching out to them and saying, hey, let's get you set up to do that direct deposits we've been talking about and get that taken care of. So we can retrain our customers, we can retrain our employees to allow us to use this technology that we weren't able to use in the past because we didn't think the customers would use it or we didn't think the employees would use it. And this is the exciting part to me about what this opportunity has opened up for us. After we get out of this, I mean, before this, I used to drive to Houston to do one coffee meeting from College Station, drive to Houston, do a coffee meeting for a potential sale, and then drive back. Because I knew that the chances of doing a video conference were going to be awkward. the person on the other end may or may not be comfortable with doing it. They may not want to do it. They may not know how to do it. And so half the meeting would be wasted just trying to get it to work. When we come out of this, the video conferencing, of course, is going to be the norm. So we're going to have the ability to just say, hey, that first time meeting, why don't we do it through a video conference and reduce, in my case, I'm going to cut out nearly 4 hours out of what was a 1 hour meeting. And so of traveling back and forth and things like that. So we'll be able to leverage these tools that we're being forced to use right now that everyone's going to be comfortable with them. It's going to be something that we can continue to use after we come out of this. And the other thing we're seeing is just communications in general. I don't know any company that I've ever talked to where we've been interviewing with all the employees when we're doing one of our discoveries or when we're talking to employees that are exiting our company. In fact, that everyone I've ever talked to has said communication could be better, and that improving communication would have helped prevent something from happening or just make work go better. Well, now we're forced into a point where we're not walking past each other on a day-to-day basis. We're using these messaging tools beyond Zoom or video conferencing. More and more people are starting to use Slack or Microsoft Teams or some type of messaging to communicate and to have more meetings and have more communication, because that's the only way we can get work done. Let's take a long, hard look at the way we're doing that and what can we bring back when we get out of having to work from home and going back to the office. A lot of that stuff we're doing now, whether you introduce daily huddles, where you have a daily huddle in the morning and you had one at night. We used to have one every evening. Now we have one 3 times a day, and to be able to make sure everyone's still on track. So that's something we can look at and making those more valuable and making those more useful to keep everyone more in the loop. And there's lots of tools out there to do that, whether it's GoToMeeting, Zoom, Teams, Skype, Google Hangouts. There's so many different tools there. You really have to see what works best with your environment, with what all you're working with. But you know, take a good look at those. Take a look at all these tools that are being forced on you, and don't look at them as this is something that I'm temporarily going to use. Look at them as a tool that we can take now and we can do more with when we come out of this. And so so all of this, and I think I heard it best recently on a video on LinkedIn. There was a guy that said that we should forget this idea of returning to normal. Returning to normal isn't going to happen. Our lives have changed and will always be changed by this. And what we really should be striving for, and the people that are going to survive this and do better, are the people that don't have a mindset of return to normal, but take on this new mindset of return to better. And that mindset is one I've been taking on in the last week since I heard it, and it's really changed my outlook on how all this will come out of all this, and I hope it does for you guys too. And I haven't seen any messages pop up yet, but Darren?
Stephen, you mentioned that having speed issues, leveraging a service like LogMeIn. Can you expand a little bit more on what LogMeIn is or how that helps?
Sure. So if you're using a program like QuickBooks and you are using what we call a VPN, what VPN does is try to act like like you're plugged into the actual network at the office. But programs like QuickBooks or things like that aren't set up to work very well over slower connections or intermittent connections. So what LogMeIn does, though, is it almost opens up a window that you're working on your computer at the office by remote controlling it from home. So the computer at your office is doing all the work, not your computer at your house, and it's not trying to transmit the data back and forth between your house and the office. It's all staying within the office. For security reasons, there's great reasons to be using a tool like LogMeIn or GoToMyPC or something like that. But just for stability and for as far as the speed issues, if you're getting knocked off, if you're having corruption errors in your QuickBooks, that's probably due to trying to do a connection through a VPN as opposed to doing one through LogMeIn. Hope I didn't get too technical there, but I'll clarify, Darren, if you want to ask any questions around that.
No, I think that's helpful. And I know when I worked at larger companies, we had our own we used a VPN channel or tunnel to connect that information, or to be able to connect and provide that secure service. Is there a size, or at what point does it make sense to use that like LogMeIn service versus trying to build something or have it built?
So the size isn't really, it's a matter of how intensive is the work that is going on. So if you are at home trying to do AutoCAD drawings, 3D drawings that are being saved directly onto a server back at the office, then you're going to want to use something that gives you allows that work to be done at the computer at the office, so that because that data is too big to be going across most people's internet connection. If you've got gigabit connection at your house, you might be able to get away with it. If no one else in your house happens to be streaming Netflix or anything else at the same time. But it's all going to depend specifically on the use case. If all of your applications were through a web browser, then using a VPN is going to help give you that network security that your company has, and then getting through the web browser, that's going to be fine. Doing email through VPN, also going to be fine, and give you a lot more protection than just being at home and doing it directly. Even just saving a Word document or two is going to be fine. So it's really up on your use case. And then there's the other use case of, there's a lot of companies out there that have very specific software specifically for their industry. And in almost every one of those cases, LogMeIn or remote desktop or something like that is always going to be your best go-to solution. So.
That's helpful. We actually just got a comment as well talking about this, that using QuickBooks through VPN really works and helps, as well as making sure that you've got you're leveraging technical solutions. So the comment is that satellite's internet is pretty weak, and you know, the commenter purchased a jetpack, and that helped to allow the access from a cell service perspective. And now it works like they're just sitting back at the computer at the office, which is really cool. I too, I live in Magnolia, and I'm maybe a half mile behind the Woodlands, but I can't get anything but DSL in my property. And so my family and I leverage a series of portable devices to access the internet over the LTE access, as opposed to using DSL for everything. But this is helpful. I'm going to have to look into this LogMeIn, hence the questions. So
and LogMeIn right now has a deal going on where they're giving away, like I think it's 60 days of free usage just during COVID-19. And if it's a larger case, if you have a lot of employees, or if, I mean, whether you're a small company or a large company, if you have any needs that you just want to ask directly, use case for your scenario, because like I said, almost everything I mentioned it's all depends on what you're doing. I don't mind spending an hour on the phone with someone, or giving one of my guys, we have 9 employees, different level of engineers and technicians, to give an hour of our time just to say, in your particular case, after we talk to you, this is what we suggest you do. So like the person that mentions doing QuickBooks for VPN from home, some concern over a Jetpack, some concerns I would have is the bandwidth usage, and that using something like LogMeIn may actually get them better bandwidth usage, so they're not running through their data so quickly on the Jetpack. And since that's a metered service, they might not have seen that yet, but they might have an issue with that as the month goes on. But again, I don't know in their specific case exactly what they're doing, so I'd have to have more details.
Sure, that's insightful. And so, if they wanted to take advantage of one of those calls, would they just send you a note, send you an email?
They could just send me an email. They can go to our website and click on schedule a meeting with our, right on the front website, there's a link that allows them to just set an appointment right on my calendar. So, and that automatically goes right into my calendar, where I have openings, it'll put you right in there and reserve that spot for you. And then we can talk about exactly who should be on that call and for each individual. And I don't mind doing that at all for anyone, even if you're not a business owner and you're just an employee at home wanting to figure out how you can get better usage out of even something like Zoom. I was talking to somebody the other day that he was having problems when we were doing a Zoom call, and I said, you know, honestly, just turn off your video. You're out in the middle of the woods on a DSL connection like Darren was talking about, but at the same time, he had family members streaming video and he was breaking up. So turn off the video, and now your voice is going to come loud and clear because it takes up less bandwidth. And that when you start hearing people chop up, and I know we want to have the video to be personal, but when it's important and you're trying to give a presentation or you're trying to make a point, turning off your video for just a little bit and then turning it back on is a great way to make sure that you're not having to repeat yourself, or that people are just ignoring not letting you know that you're having problems, which I've seen happen a lot. People start to chop up and everyone's like, oh, well, we got the gist of it, so we won't correct them and have them go back and do it.
Thanks. We received a question about security as it relates to where I'm accessing the internet from. Are there concerns that we need to think about on how our employees are accessing, say they're at the coffee shop on a common Wi-Fi from there versus using a Jetpack or a hotspot like Dee indicated?
There are, always security concerns. One of the important things is to be running a firewall directly on the individual computer to make sure that other people can't connect into the computer directly. There's issues which a VPN can help solve. And again, it ties to, and not sound like a broken record, it all depends on the way your systems work and what you're connecting in and how you're connecting. But the security issue we worry most about is a device that is not under control of the company, meaning it's an employee's home computer that's being used for things outside of the norm of business. So they're using it to play games, they're using it to watch videos, they're using it to do anything else that they normally do, and you don't know what those applications are. You don't know if they've got a virus. You don't know if they've got those things. So using something like LogMeIn as opposed to a VPN puts a layer of protection just from doing that. If you're using a VPN to somebody's home computer, now they've got a direct access into your network. You might as well not have had antivirus on all the rest of the computers at work because the guy at home doesn't. So yeah, so anything you would normally do in your company, on your company's computers, you need to make sure that your employees are doing to as much as possible, like making sure they have current antivirus, making sure that they are, they've got a firewall on at least their computer to protect it. There's not one size fits all solution for any of this stuff.
Cool. Thank you. Another one came in on your communication mention that you mentioned having several roundtable meetings a day to communicate with the team and those. Do you have any advice on what's too much versus not enough and how you balance that, or how leaders can balance that with their teams?
I would say that right now depending on what industry you're in, you almost can't have too much right now. You can't have too much communication during this time, even if it's from just checking in to give everyone a sanity check. Because I just read an article yesterday about that the biggest health issue that's going to come out of this COVID-19 isn't the virus, it's the mental health of everyone having to deal with everything that's going on around this. And that's the having to work from home stress, that's the stress of the virus itself, that's the stress of the economy. All of that is the mental health is the biggest thing. So what I would suggest on the video conferencing or any of this is that we start to look at our company's true KPIs, how many widgets we produce, how many invoices go out, how many jobs get done, or how many calls get done by accounts receivable. Find those numbers, find those KPIs, and start to evaluate the performance of your team based on those, not by the number of hours they put in, so that you're not stressing about whether they're doing their job while they're not under your thumb. So you have meetings about what needs to be said. You have meetings. I know several people that have water cooler meetings, like they have it scheduled on their schedule that everyone at 4:30 get on this Zoom meeting, and we're not going to talk about work. We're just going to talk about random stuff so that we can have that same interaction we had at our office. My company has been using a tool called Slack for chatting to communicate throughout the day for last couple of years. So and I have a bunch of tech geeks. So their water cooler chat is always been on Slack or our messaging system, which at times, makes our HR people when they look at it cringe a little, but that's
yep.
But that's for us, that's been good. That means that everyone has that place to blow off steam, has a place to chat and still get that interaction that most people get from just being in an office. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to go to 3 times a day, or you need to have it even twice a day. It needs to be more than what you were doing before we went into this. And it needs to be not just doom and gloom the whole time. I mean, throw a happy hour, throw a, or something, like I said, a water cooler meeting in the middle of the day or at some point, just to allow everyone to have that sanity again of being around people.
Very cool. You mentioned Slack. I know Microsoft Teams is out there. There are some other ones. In terms of security, for example, I just started using Slack with a client of mine. Are there any security considerations we need to take as we're setting it up, or is it just kind of make sure we're reading through? What should I have done now that I've just implemented a new technology to my company? And
Okay, so I didn't personally set up Slack, and I haven't personally set up a Slack yet for anyone. So I don't know where the security settings are set. I don't know if the free version, if that's what you're using, has all of the settings that you want as a business.
So that's interesting.
When we use Slack, we use it not because it's just a convenient tool to communicate with, but as a company, we know that if anything's ever deleted or removed from Slack, it keeps an audit trail of all that communication. And so that audit trail of all that communication is so very important to businesses. And most of the time it's after an employee leaves, when you get sued, that it becomes apparent that the box wasn't checked to keep the audit trail. So that's what I'd be looking for is keeping archived data, and the rules around that is what we look for when we're trying to help a client decide on a tool or when we're setting up a tool, because like you mentioned, there's Teams and there's Slack and there's other tools that do these same things, and some are better for different things. Slack is got a lot of intention behind it to be a tool to keep all of the data and to keep that audit trail. That's one of the reasons why Slack was even created, is to have that ability to have that. So I would say it's probably there in the free version, but I don't know. A lot of free tools don't include that ability. Like your free Gmail account doesn't include the fact of actually protecting the data. If they accidentally lost all your data, that's just the way it is. But if you have the paid version, you have backups and archives and things like that.
That's an interesting point. I learned recently. I was reading through, and a lot of this information on what is and isn't covered or what included is in the terms of service that I'm guilty of just saying yeah, click next, go, as I see a terms of service. But I was flipping through one recently, trying to figure out how this company gathered the data they use and they sell, and it was shocking to see what I was providing access to my inbox, and they could read all of my signatures, and they could read all of that information and all the signatures that came in from other emails from different companies and different people that I communicated with to load their database with contact information. And so I think that's one place that I learned surprisingly is more important than I really took into account, is those terms of services and what exactly we're agreeing to let these companies look at and see. And so the paid content actually protected from that. If I was a paid user, right, they wouldn't access that information. So
you're always paying for your software. There's no such thing as free software. If you have free software, you're paying for it by giving up your privacy. And so, and that's your agreement. That's your currency that you're trading for it. And personal information, and that is a currency now. And that's what, I mean, that's kind of hard to, I mean, it sounds like a joke almost, but it's kind of hard to wrap our minds around. But that data, that personal information data, is a currency. It's as much as a dollar bill is. And that's why all these phishing schemes and all these hackers are out there, is because they can put a dollar amount to every piece of information they're taking from you. And one thing I am seeing more than ever, and I'll go ahead and speak on this, is on Facebook. And I see a lot of these sites on, hey, everyone post your favorite car. hey, everyone post who your mascot was from high school. These are all supposed to be icebreaker type things to get everyone to interact with each other, social things. But what it actually is those type of posts are started by hackers and scammers, because they know that most of you people don't have their security on their Facebook, and they can go back through your feed and they can find out all these things about you, and now they can answer all those questions when they try to log into your bank about what was your first pet's name, what was your mother's maiden name, what was your first vehicle, and all those, because they look at your social media. And I'm seeing more and more of this every day on Facebook, more than ever, I think, right now, because I think people are trying to use Facebook as a way to just blow off some steam and to connect with their friends. And but they're being farmed for their personal information constantly. You're muted right now, Darren.
Yeah, thanks. I think it brings even more light to the importance of balancing, or not balancing, really preventing folks from leveraging or the kids using Facebook and those types of things on the same computer that your employees are transferring data and whatever else, corporate
Absolutely.
data. Yeah, good. Folks, I haven't seen any more questions come in on email, and I don't see any on chat. Stephen, do you have any closing remarks or closing thoughts?
I think, again, I just want to reiterate the mindset of returning to better is something that we all need to look at. I think technology we're going to see an adoption of technology that would have taken us 5 years, and that's going to be compressed into this 1 year, which is going to be amazing. If anyone wants some help on looking at ways to become more efficient, protect their systems, look at and get more specific answers on their own, reach out to me. Again, it's no pressure. Just take an hour or so of your time and my time, and we'll take it and we'll look at what you're doing, and we'll show you what you can look at, where you can look at some things that might specifically work better for you, and things that you can take advantage of if you just want to talk about what of these tools can I even use in my company, or how can I apply this to a retail company? I don't have any idea how. My store is completely shut down. What can I be doing? I can give you some ideas on that too. There's always some things that we can be doing on the back end that we constantly wish we had time to do, and we can help you look at those and find those and show you how to do them on your own and point you in the right direction at the very least.
Awesome.
So
thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for those on the call, Jennifer Davis with Employer Flexible is going to send out a thank you note, and we'll have links. We'll include some of the links that Stephen mentioned today, as well as links to TechBundle and to the recording of this in case you want to go back or share it with other.
One more plug real quick. And that is, besides being TechBundle, I am the Entrepreneurs Organization Learning Chair. So what that means is I go out and find speakers and to bring back into our community to speak to our entrepreneurs organization, and some of those are open to the public. But I also, during this time, have been keeping a track of, and you've got the link, Darren, of events and webinars that are free business events, including one that I don't know if it's happening today or tomorrow, that's just on things from mental health to how to homeschool your kids to working on your business instead of in your business. These webinars are about anything and everything that can be helping you right now, that you might also use that resource to find more information, other things to learn from some great speakers. So, and I update that every single day with new with new webinars.
That's outstanding. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I noticed, I did when I went out there, I noticed some of the links to the webinar series that we offer. So thank you for that.
Yes.
And so Jennifer with Employer Flexible, we was sending out the note. Employer Flexible is a professional employer organization, a PEO. And what that group does is they can actually outsource your HR too, but go beyond just the consulting services that I provide. And they provide payroll processing, tax withholding, benefits admin, HR consult, all of it, just kind of in a one-stop shop. And so she's one of the groups that helped encourage me and partner with me to get this thing kicked off, to introduce me to the chamber and get everybody going. So again, thanks to Brian, College Station, Chamber of Commerce, thanks to the SBDC, Employer Flexible, and Stephen, thank you again, and TechBundle for your time today and offering out your consult and insight to the folks out on the call. So we're looking at another call on Thursday. We'll be looking at one of two topics. We've got commercial insurance and benefits for your employees to understand what we need to be considering during COVID, but there is a chance we may get bumped due to one of our local representatives for the federal government potentially having a call at the same time, that we're going to defer to him because he's going to have a lot of representatives. If the call comes into play, it'll have a group from the SBA and to talk about the stimulus packages and then potentially the fourth one that's coming out. So we want to make sure that it's probably going to work out that time, this 1 o'clock time, works well. So we'll be putting news out on that, on what's coming next, if it's going to be insurance or if it's going to be more news about stimulus plans from the folks that are writing it right now. So keep an eye on the website and let us know if you've got any interest on topics we haven't covered yet. There's a vote box at the bottom on the webinars, and we're going to start scheduling out the next week's webinars as the week goes on this week. So Stephen, thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
those on the call, thanks for joining. I see a lot of the same names, which I'm truly grateful for. So hope this continues to be helpful for everyone. Thanks for joining, folks.
Thank you.